All right, let's dive right in. So depending on where you are, I'm sort of started these questions out, assuming that you are post-revenue, potentially pre-profit, you're kind of in the sort of you're in market, you've found some degree of product market fit, you're in a sort of a Series A round, and you're looking to take some money and accelerate your growth, right? That typically is a good place to start, but if you're further along, we're definitely going to ask questions and have some conversation that will help you. And if you're before that, hopefully you get to this stage and this stuff is useful to you. So it starts out with people, right? People, very important topic these days. It seems like I'm in a webinar every day talking about how it's really, really important to attract the top talent. And from an engineering perspective, I think a lot of people at the phase where you've launched, you've got some degree of engineering, you've got your product, but maybe the founder and a small agency, or maybe the founder and a co-founder are doing some of the marketing themselves, or maybe you've experimented and got that first early hire, but you're looking to grow your team. So these first sets of questions are based around that. So just to start it off, I wanted to get people's thoughts in the panel on whether you should outsource. So there's a lot of firms, I get three to five emails a day from firms saying, hey, we can do all your marketing. We can do LinkedIn outreach. We can do X, Y, and Z. So I just want to get your thoughts on, should I, as a founder, grow my team? Should I be looking for these people, or should I go for that prepackaged team? So let's start with Eileen. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I'm excited to hear what Nate and Carrie think about this too. But what I've seen is that, I mean, obviously everything I have to say is it would depend on your go-to-market and, things like how much the early product leaders or founders, know marketing or know demand generation or really want to be involved in that. What I've seen is that the first, person to bring on really should be in-house, and that's somebody who's going to be great at messaging and things like corralling founders and product leaders to create those things, and then also potentially bring on some other, fractional or like other folks on a fractional basis, or agencies where that's going to make sense. But what I have seen is that, it's not going to make a lot of sense, certainly, to hire like agencies to do intensive branding until you've really found, that stride with product market fit, because so much is going to change. I'd say like you'd be doing those things on Fiverr, 99 brands, something like that, and investing in getting that traction you need before you're building those things out. Where agencies can really make sense, that I've seen, an SEO agency. Like, SEO is a team sport, and you're going to get a ton of value out of it. And a good SEO agency will be able to kind of pitch hit on some other sort of like digital type projects. The other thing I'd make a plug for is like a good consultant who can set up your MarTech stack, and also like advise on any kind of governance or like buy-in with the team that you're going to need to make it work. But in what I've seen is that, you can, a lot of mistakes that you can save if you get a real expert to set that up for you. So those are a couple I have.
Sounds like your suggestions, to summarize, is more on the tactical side, right? Some of these things like SEO are tactical, but owning strategic yourself, at least until you get to that market fit. Would that be a reasonable summary?
Yeah, that's great to say it. Thanks.
So now I'm going to throw the ball to Nate, who actually works at a company that helps support this stuff. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, and I actually hate agencies. So it's funny. We're building kind of an anti-agency agency. I think agencies certainly have value. I think in the long term, everything in-house is ideal. I think in the short term, you obviously can't do that. You can't go out and hire a full-time team unless you have crazy fundraising. Finding that talent is very, very difficult. So I think it's a combination. I think always be recruiting and always be looking for those people who can really add value in the early days. It's usually a challenge because you usually don't have massive budgets for these hiring roles. So you can't grab someone who has a ton of experience. I think the most important hire in the early days, if the founding team is not like scrappy and in the data and kind of, to Eileen's point, like involved in the messaging and has a point of view on creative and all that stuff that it takes to grow the company. you need someone who's scrappy and who can really kind of like look at everything and start just figuring stuff out. Because again, to Eileen's point, like everything is going to change, and it's a matter of getting someone that will just constantly be looking at it, figuring out what's going on, and then holding others accountable for the performance and trying new things and just moving quickly. So I think that's probably the most important hire. And then you can leverage agencies. The most important thing about if you're using agencies is like having someone internally to manage them and hold them accountable. Because if they're operating in silos, things can get wacky really fast. And yeah, I guess that's like high level how I think about it. And I think it's very important, especially in the early days, to hire the right talent, because it can have a massive impact on your growth, but also like I've seen just culture impacts of making the wrong hire when your team's 5, 10, 15, 20 people. It can have a very, negative or positive impact. So I think always be recruiting, always be looking for those scrappy people who are very comfortable operating in the world of unknown, let's figure it out, and leverage agencies where you see fit, only when you feel like you have people in-house who can actually manage the agencies.
Makes sense. Carrie, you have anything you'd like to add?
I just think they both articulated it so well. I'd completely echo that the best agency relationships I've seen are where exactly that internal team continues to be the experts. And then, like Nate said, they go to the agency and, okay, we don't have the capability or expertise to create this, we need your expertise from the agency here, or, using a consultant for certain pieces. But yeah, I think that's absolutely been my experience as well.
So that leads to hiring. Who should we hire when we're looking to get started? Say I have no marketers in my group. If you were in that position, would you be looking to hire sort of a more tactical boots on the ground person? It sounds like Nate, we have a good answer from you already. Or would you be looking for a head of growth who can sort of strategically lay things out, and then maybe need to hire additional people underneath that head of growth? Carrie, you want to give that a start?
Yeah. So I also, again, agree you need a boots on the ground person. That said, obviously, there's going to be so much that you're learning in the beginning. So they have to be, and again, this has already been said, but they have to be so closely aligned with product and sales that you guys are collectively coming up with that strategic vision. So whether you technically have a head of growth or not, you guys all need to be filling that sort of function. So there is a strategy, and it's going to keep evolving. It's going to keep changing, but yeah, somebody who's that scrappy, on the ground, really well rounded. And even if they don't know how to do something, they know how to find somebody to do it, again, whether an agency or a consultant, that kind of thing. Yeah, but definitely I'm of the tactical camp there.
How about you, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think of a head of growth. Usually anything head of is usually kind of like this tweener where it's not director, VP, but it gives me the ability to move them to that level if they're great. It gives me the ability to hire over them if they're, so I kind of think of a head of growth as like a high potential, really hungry, scrappy person who's willing to kind of like take on a bunch of challenges and probably take a salary that's less than they can go out and get, but they're excited more by the startup and the learning opportunity and the growth opportunity and the equity and the upside and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think you definitely need someone who has the experience of doing a bunch of stuff and running marketing and being involved in it at the very least. And then also someone who can dig into the data and feel very comfortable getting in the weeds and kind of just figuring out what's going on. Because again, it's like so many things change. So many things will work, not work. And it's more about that rinse, wash, repeat of running growth and just getting someone in who's willing to get in the weeds. And that's for someone more experienced, usually that's not the case. They're like well beyond that and they need a team to support that. So usually it's a junior hire who's really hungry and really comfortable working with data, at least on the growth side. I think that's massively important. I think ideally they have an opinion on creative and can guide a creative team. They can manage agencies. But yeah, I guess my answer might be bad in that I would say both, a head of growth and someone who's in the weeds.
Sure.
Nate, what kind of like what was the most recent thing that your ideal candidate was doing?
Usually they are like manager level and involved in, just growth marketing. So sometimes they lean acquisition and they're living in Facebook and managing ads and they're running paid search and they're kind of doing everything. Or they're more on the retention side. and they're, thinking about all the post-purchase stuff and a lot of digital product. So if it's an app, they're looking at all that data and figuring out what flows are working, what features do we need to add. If they're looking at a website, they're thinking about conversion rate optimization. They feel very comfortable, to your point earlier on the marketing tech stack stuff, where they like to use they've been involved in evaluating ESPs and using Segment or some kind of CDP to collect a bunch of events, and using an Amplitude or Google Analytics to look at funnels. I think acquisition people can learn retention stuff. Retention people can learn acquisition stuff. It's usually hard to find someone who's done all of it that's willing to come in and get scrappy. So that's kind of like, I guess, high level. It's one of those two focus areas, and it's usually like manager level with a ton of potential, and they're probably not at a startup, and they want to get into that kind of like crazy startup world that we all seem to love for some reason.
Because we've lost our minds. I think that's the summary on why we love this. Anything to add there, Eileen? It's a great question.
No, just that resonated. Like the best interviews I've had with folks are where they're telling like very clear stories about situations they were in, where they had to look at a bunch of data and draw conclusions about like some part of a journey that was broken and make recommendations to fix it.
Yeah, and it's hard because you're looking for someone to go. Marketing is really just an amalgamation of a whole lot of different categories of tactical and strategic stuff. And, you're looking for someone that can understand that at an affordable rate as a small company, right? So to Nate's point, you're looking for someone that can grow into that role generally, but, you're also looking for someone that can empathize and understand your customer journey, your buyer journey, because it all comes back from that funnel. So they really need to understand the product and be excited about it as well, right? It can't just be a random, hire out of Target or some big company, because they don't have that skill set, that scrappy skill set that you're looking for.